Let's rewind a few years. Obviously, Blizzard had Overwatch in the pipeline. At what point did someone come in and say, you know what, we have to develop an actual league with cities, players, sponsors, platforms, and whatnot? Where in the process did that come into the conversation?
Yeah, so I started working at Blizzard in October of 2014. Actually, Halloween was my first day, and when I started working at Blizzard, I was on the marketing team. And on my very first day at work, I got to see what was the BlizzCon announcement trailer for Overwatch, and it was like, "Hey, check this thing out! We're announcing next week." And it was like, "Oh my God, what is this?" And got to start playing it, and even very early on in the game's development, there were internal tournaments happening, and just knew that the game was designed to be an awesome competitive experience. I wouldn't say it was a game where it was designed to be an esport. It was designed to be a super fun competitive game. We knew that people were going to want to play it competitively. And sort of, fast forward 6 or 7 months, and sort of the inception point for Overwatch League was I was in Germany for Gamescom, and randomly had breakfast one morning with Jeff Kaplan, who was also there, the game director for Overwatch. And we just sat down and started talking about esports. And we were both huge fans of traditional sports. Jeff is like a massive hockey fan, which is strange because he's not Canadian, but loves hockey, and every analogy he will ever give you about sports is related to hockey. I played baseball growing up. I played a year of baseball in college and retired because I wasn't very good, and followed tons of traditional sports. And we sort of jived on, hey, like, why doesn't esports take more cues from traditional sports? Are there some things that we could apply from traditional sports to Overwatch because it's such a team-based game, and see where that takes us? So that sort of started the ideation for the Overwatch League, and we came up with this pitch internally that would, at the time we were calling it like the Overwatch Premier League or something like that, right. And sort of kicked it around a bunch internally, but had the basic idea of let's do city-based teams, let's do permanent franchises. The idea was if we're going to build a sport from scratch, let's get some permanence to those teams. I'd been an esports fan for a long time, but being an esports fan, I think has always been, you have to like work at it, or at least you had to, I think. And it was always a thing, and I think one of the charms of it actually in the early years was it felt like this thing that not a lot of people knew about, and if you knew about it, it was like you're in the club, right? You're an esport fan. And so we wanted to create some permanence. We thought city-based teams would be a great way to give more casual players, casual fans a reason to care, and also potentially unlock a new model. And from there, we sort of moved into a process where we spent many, many months looking across all of the structures from traditional sports. We looked at the obvious ones, but we really did like a total audit of professional sports league structures and how they're organized, and put together what we thought was a pretty good plan. Felt good enough about it to announce it at BlizzCon of 2016, and then kick off our team sales process. But it was really like a strategy project in a lot of ways, right. In sort of its first year, where we were bringing the idea to life, and then once we announced it, sort of had to flip the switch, and that turned into what will probably be the craziest year of my life.
Well, I definitely want to get into flipping the switch. Before we do, can you talk a bit about Blizzard's philosophy when it comes to esports, and how Overwatch League not only is an extension of that, but evolved it?
Yeah, I think Blizzard is first and foremost about making great games. Right. I think esports, we look at every single game individually and think about what fits best for that game and that game's community. We don't think there's a one-size-fits-all approach for esports, and if you look across our portfolio, we do things very differently on all the different games. But we do view esports as an incredibly important piece of a game's ecosystem. And to be a great competitive game, we think there needs to be a great competitive scene and community around the game. But it really comes down to making great games, and then once we make the decision that we're going to support it as an esport, really supporting it not just from an esports perspective, but from a game development perspective too. When people ask me all the time, what does it take for a game to be a great esport? I really think there's only one answer, and that answer is a game development team that is supportive of it being an esport. That's going to invest the time and resources into building spectator tools and building all the tools you need in order to broadcast the game and make an awesome experience from an esports content perspective. So I think that's sort of the way that we approach it at Blizzard, is if we're going to do esports, and particularly in Overwatch, I think with all the things that the game teams added over the last year, really sort of all in from a game development perspective as well as the business and esports perspective.
So then BlizzCon 2016, Overwatch Cup, we're seeing Robert Kraft, owner of the Patriots, for example, come in. Can you talk a little bit to me about pitching to them? Who all were you talking to? Were you looking specifically for, did you originally just want people who had experience in esports, or just sports, or how did that mixture come about?
Yeah, so BlizzCon 2016, we announced the Overwatch League. If I get asked this question all the time, like, why was there so much time between when you announced at BlizzCon 2016 and when you announced the first 7 teams in July of 2017? And I truly wish that gap wasn't as long as it was. Like, it was definitely a long time. But it was really like BlizzCon's the best place for us to announce anything. It's like, it's our biggest megaphone. It's the one time a year where everyone's paying attention to Blizzard, so it made a lot of sense to announce it at BlizzCon. And what we did at BlizzCon 2016 is we actually invited essentially every North American and European professional sports owner to come out and check out BlizzCon. And I think BlizzCon is an amazing event. I know it's hard to get tickets. I think last year tickets sold out in 12 seconds or something crazy like that. But if you ever get a chance to go to BlizzCon, you should definitely go. BlizzCon's an amazing event, and it's an amazing esport event in that there's like 5 esport events happening simultaneously. So we really wanted people to come out and experience, because I think truly for people to get esports, you need to go to an event live. In the same way that I never cared about soccer because I'm American, it took me... Well, I cared about it now, but what made me care about it was I went to a Premier League game in London, and then I got it, right? I was like, oh, okay, there's so much history in all of the songs and the chants and the fandom. Like, it sort of sucks you in, and you become a fan. And I think the same sort of journey I think people need to go on in esports too. So we wanted people to come experience it. We hosted this big event where we sort of kicked off what became the team sales process, where we shared a presentation behind closed doors with some folks and said, hey, this is what we're doing on Overwatch League, and we'll be in touch soon. But it was cool to have Robert Kraft is there, Stan Kroenke, who ended up buying teams, and a bunch of other people who didn't. But I think it was a really cool experience, and it was a really cool opportunity to get all those people in the same room. And in addition to those people, we had also invited pretty much every endemic esport club owner too. Right. And so we had this really cool moment that Friday at BlizzCon where you had sort of the who's who of esport team owners with the who's who of traditional sports team owners sort of mingling. And it was a cool experience for us just to see those worlds coming together, because it had sort of started a few months before that. There had been some deal activity in that space, but it was really cool to see that come together. And I think it makes a lot of sense for those worlds to come together. So that was what we did at BlizzCon, and then sort of from that moment, it was really about getting out in front of people and sharing our vision for the Overwatch League and looking for teams to sign up.
Now, there have been reports that there are some people who didn't make the cut when it came to the first 12, so to speak. Can you talk a little bit about what was important to you when it came to making those decisions?
Yeah, we really wanted to find, it doesn't take much to go on Google and find many articles about bad things happening in esports, players not getting paid and all that kind of stuff. Right. And we thought if we were going to do this permanent franchise league and we were going to do this right, we needed to get professional owners that were going to come in and invest and build the infrastructure in the way that we wanted to do, because the vision for the Overwatch League is that we will be home and away. The idea is like last night's super sick Seoul versus New York game that happened. The plan is in the not too distant future that game's played in either Seoul or New York. And the reason for that is back to my earlier point about BlizzCon. Right now in esports, you really only get to experience that content live if you live in like Seoul, Shanghai, LA. Like there's very small cities where that stuff happens, but we think we need to really broaden the opportunity for fans to engage with the content live. So we needed to have owners that were going to be able to host live events, that were going to either have that capability or have a great plan to build that capability. So it was really about finding professional owners with a proven capability in building a fan base. I think if you look across all our owners, the ones from technology, the ones from traditional sports, the ones from esports, that all have done an amazing job in their careers and other businesses at building a passionate fan base. And then we wanted people that had great operational capability, whether that be in esports, traditional sports, technology, and a great plan for how they want to build their franchise and eventually build, a thriving business around a home arena.
Well, based off some of the success, I'm sure some of the skepticism that you probably first initially encountered has quickly gone away. What was the resistance that you get? What were they concerned about?
Well, I think anytime you do something that's very different than how things have traditionally been done in the past, there's always going to be resistance. And I think, to be fair, if I go sit on the other side of it, I would have been skeptical too. Like it's going and selling esport franchises. No one had ever done that before. And the city-based thing had been dabbled with before, but never in the way that we were aiming towards doing it. And really, our desire for home and away. We looked at the esports ecosystem, and what we saw is most of the esports clubs. In fact, nearly all of the esports clubs make zero money. In fact, they lose a lot of money. And if you look at traditional sports teams, they make money. The only reason they make money is because they have a home venue and they sell tickets and merchandise and concessions and parking and all of the things because they host home games. So we really thought there was a huge opportunity because the esports audience was really approaching scale. There's millions of fans around the world that want to engage with this content live, because going to an esport event is awesome. Like, you get to connect with other people that have the same passion as you. If you play a ton of Overwatch, it's really fun to go to a place where everyone else also plays a ton of Overwatch and have a shared experience around your passion for the game. So I think the resistance was a lot because of how ambitious the plan was.
Right.
But I think have been executing pretty well. I think we have a long way to go until we get to the eventual vision. And I expect that, there will definitely be bumps on that road. But we really wanted to focus on coming out of the gate, executing professionally, making great content, and sort of scaling it from there. But I sort of, as a fan, sitting on the other side of it, I totally understand the skepticism, and that's totally natural. But I think we really are all in on this. This is not a thing that we're thinking about doing for a year or two and seeing how it goes. Mm-hmm. We're making a long-term commitment to building a business around the sport of Overwatch, which we think is an incredible opportunity.
So now you have the investment. You've locked in teams and cities. Now, I imagine from your point of view, you're focusing on the production, the venues, the players. Let's jump into the players first of all, in terms of how they were recruited and brought in. Clearly, Overwatch World Cup provided one opportunity for people to be exposed as fantastic Overwatch players. What was your original goal there?
Yeah, so first and foremost, when it comes to players, our goal was to create, our goal is still to this day, we want to create the world's premier esport league, where if you're a gamer, it's the league that you aspire to be in, because it's the league where it's best to be a player. That's truly our goal. And I think we're off to a good start there. So, every player in the league, it was important to us that they had a guaranteed minimum salary. So $50,000 is the lowest salary a player in the league can make. We also wanted to make sure that a player's contract, if the team was going to sign a player to a contract, the contract meant something. I think you see too often in esports, players sign a contract and then they're dropped very easily.
Right.
We wanted to have some permanence there for players as well. Our teams have healthcare benefits and other benefits for players. So we really wanted to make being a pro player in the Overwatch League a real career, and something that players would aspire to be a part of. In terms of the teams finding the players, we assisted with that in as much as we have a ton of data on great Overwatch players. And so we shared with teams data that they could use for scouting of players. And I think we've seen, a lot of players come up in the league that most fans hadn't heard of. There had been Apex in Korea, OWPS in China. There had been contenders in North America and Europe, and obviously World Cup, as you mentioned. But there hadn't been a lot of consistent events. And so there's players like Dream Casper on Boston that very few people had ever heard of. It was mostly a ladder player. And the fact that teams had access to data where they could scout players, I think really helped uncover some players like that, and really excited to see, sort of the stars of tomorrow that are uncovered in that way. But that was sort of the extent of our involvement in the player selection process. I think going forward, as we move into season 2 and beyond, we'll probably look to formalize and maybe put a little bit more structure and continue to add more structure along the way in how player selection works and free agency. But so far, it was really important to us that the best players in the world, regardless of where they're from, were able to play in the Overwatch League. I think sports fans want to see their team win, and it was very important to us. We wanted to make sure that if there's 150 players in the Overwatch League, that it's truly the best 150 players in the world.
Right. So then, from a production point of view, I imagine you have to think from the audience's perspective, how they're going to be viewing it, both in live and, of course, on whatever platform you ended up landing on. Talk a little bit about the thought that went into Blizzard Arena, and then maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the enhancements that came to help the entire round, I guess would be the best way to go.
Yeah, so in terms of viewability of the game, I think that was an area that we knew was incredibly important for Overwatch. Overwatch, if you think about Overwatch as a sport, it's basically, there's 12 players in the field, and at all times, all 12 players are doing something important. So how do you broadcast that? Oh, and by the way, it's super fast-paced. So it's a huge challenge in telling the story of an Overwatch match. So we used the World Cup last year in 2017 as an opportunity to sort of beta test some new features. So we have team uniforms, which was a full coloring of each of the teams, and not just the skins, but all of the effects in the game and all the UI elements. We had a new replay system, which I don't think people appreciate how amazing it is when you watch the Overwatch League broadcast and there's a super sick play and we miss it. Like, we have instant replay up of that within seconds. And the only reason we can do that is because we can actually render those replays direct from the game engine, because the team built a tool where every single event that happens, there's an event log. And we have a guy whose name is also Nate, who's awesome, who sits back in the replay room, and if there's a play, the production team says, give me that, Genji 3K, and he can open the event log, he clicks it, the game engine renders it, he can change the angle, speed it up, slow it down, spit it out, and we can have it on the broadcast. And that entire process takes as little as 12 to 15 seconds. Right. So that's a tool that was built in the game. There's also a bunch of different camera angles that I've added in the game. And so all of those we piloted at BlizzCon last year in 2017 and then refined as we moved towards launch of the Overwatch League. So that was super critical. The other thing that we wanted to do was Blizzard Arena, as you mentioned. So it was incredibly important to us that until we go to home and away, that we had a really amazing venue to put on these matches, and a venue that would be great for producing the broadcast. And where better to do that than a television studio? And it was pretty cool that Burbank Studios Studio One was available. Apparently, my office in the building is Jay Leno's old office, which is sort of weird.
Right.
It has a shower in it, which is very strange. I haven't used it ever. I don't plan on using it either. But it was an amazing facility, and we came in and built. And if you've been there, you know it's an incredible experience being there live. And especially when you sit down on the floor, you feel like you're almost like enveloped in the game. And there's also other elements in that stage that are also controlled by the game via an API, essentially a match state API. And it's hero screens that are dynamic. When a hero dies, they gray out. It has alt percentage. It makes it much easier to follow. And one of the coolest things that I think Overwatch is doing that I hope to see more esports do in the future is when you look at that Overwatch League stage, you'll see Fleda's face on the Seoul Dynasty from the face cam, and he's wearing a Seoul Dynasty uniform. And then you look up and you see he's playing Pharah, who's also wearing a Seoul Dynasty uniform. And then you look at the gameplay and it's like, oh, there's Pharah in the Seoul Dynasty uniform. We're really trying to reinforce you're not watching a simulation of a video game. There is a super skilled professional gamer that's controlling this. Right. And it's also really cool that you can buy that jersey, and then you can also buy the jersey in the game. So we're really trying to reinforce that, and those are tools that are in there. But the Blizzard Arena is, essentially what we do there 4 days a week is make a live television show. It's not on TV, but on Twitch and on OverwatchLeague.com and MLG. And so it was really the perfect location to do that. And the reason we're not in the home venues yet is what you'll notice when you go to an esport event is it's incredibly complex. Operationally, there's a lot that goes into running an esport event. It's actually pretty amazing if you think about running an NBA basketball game. There's actually not a lot of technology you need to do that. In a lot of arenas, there's still like a guy sitting there with a laptop, like changing the score on the scoreboard, right? But running an esport event, there's quite a lot that goes into it from an IT perspective. And so we wanted to make sure that our franchises had time to build the capability to produce events in the home market at the level of quality that we expect. And so that's why we're in Blizzard Arena right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, great. Terrific. Let's try the video.
Halftime. Yeah, so talent, esports talent it's actually, I think, pretty amazing how good the talent is, considering most of the talent is self-taught and just sort of has grown organically out of the community. Right. A lot of our guys have, years and years of experience and have sort of done a great job in just learning and getting better over time. But we wanted to make sure, so first and foremost, we needed to have great casters who can explain the action. I think when anyone's new to Overwatch, I always say, make sure to listen to the casters. You're going to learn a lot. I also think esports doesn't really get the benefit of the doubt. It's weird to me. Like if I took you to a NHL hockey game and you'd never seen hockey before in your life, I'm going to spend at least 30 minutes explaining to you what's going on. Right. And I don't understand why esports doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. Like, people act like it's hard to explain and understand. Like, it's actually relatively simple, and if you pay attention and you watch for 20 or 30 minutes, you'll probably get it. But we wanted casters who could really explain the action, and also really exciting. We were really lucky to get Monty and Doa, one of the best caster duos out there. We had other, we knew Mitch was awesome, Matt was awesome, Similar was awesome, and Hex was awesome, and we kind of pulled those guys together. And as we add more talent, we'll definitely be looking to add more casters. From there, one of the, I think, hardest jobs in esports talent, the fans don't give these guys enough credit, desk host. It's actually really hard. Oh, yeah. That is a skill, and there's very few people who are actually really good at it. And the fact that we could get Chris Puckett and Golden Boy to play that role for us was awesome. From there, analyst is something that's hard in a new game. We don't have a lot of retired pro players that we can lean on because we just started. But Brandon, Sideshow, and Reinforce and Crumbs, I think, are doing really great. And then Zoe plays an incredibly cool role, sort of our analyst slash insider. And then Malik is our stage host. And one of the things I'll say in terms of talent, and just really like everything around the Overwatch League, Overwatch is a game. I think one of the reasons it's so appealing to people is this a game that really stands for diversity and inclusion. It it takes a very bright, hopeful view of the future. It's not like a lot of Earth-based future games where it's like this dystopian future and we're all dying or there's nuclear holocaust and stuff like that. It's like shiny and bright and pretty. And the cast of heroes in Overwatch is incredibly diverse. So it's important for us and everything that we're doing around Overwatch League to carry that on as much as we can. I think there's more that we can do, and I think having Malik, having Golden Boy, having Zoe is a great start, but more we can do on that, and we're really viewing contenders as a great opportunity for us to try new talent.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, and give more talent and opportunity. I think one of the reasons you don't see a ton of diverse talent in esports right now is there hasn't been a ton of opportunity for people. Like the way, how do you get better? You get better by doing it, by getting reps, right? So we view contenders, which is our sort of regional minor league system where we're in 7 different regions, as an opportunity to give a bunch of new talent an opportunity to get reps and hopefully bubble to the top.
I know there's a lot of talent out there, but who are some people you see as shining stars that are rising pretty quickly?
It's a good question. I really like in the fighting. I'm just thinking about the esports that I watch. in the fighting game community, I really like D1 a lot. I think that guy's super good. I watched a lot of the Counter-Strike Major. I think all those casters are really, really excellent. We were very lucky to have Similar come join us, who is a longtime CSGO caster. He brings a really fun style to Overwatch. Whereas Monty and Doa have cast it more like a MOBA, because that's their background. Similar cast it more like a shooter. He says things like frag. It's just like a very different style, and it's kind of fun and makes it feel different. I think there's some awesome talent out there. Rachel Kiriko is someone who we've worked with in the past that does tons of esports stuff. She's really amazing. And I think we have a lot of folks that are coming up through our contenders group and competition that I think have a lot of promise, like Stephanie Tan out of Southeast Asia, I think has a bright future ahead of her.
So then that brings us to opening day. And suddenly I'm seeing on Twitter, oh my God, we're hitting 300,000, up to 400,000 people who are watching opening week. What have you learned? What did you learn from stage one about audiences, about when people are watching the most? So what are they looking for?
Yeah, I think there's, like, as esports fans and gamers, like, we're all super competitive. And I think there's this, this sort of mentality out there a little bit that esports is like a zero-sum game in some way, that there's like a finite number of esports fans and we all have to fight over them. I think that's totally not true. And I think it's being proved week in, week out when you go to Twitch and you look at on a Saturday and there's a Dota event with 100,000 people watching it, and Overwatch League has 150,000 people watching it, and NALCS has 150,000 people watching it, and there's Counter-Strike and 200,000 people are watching it, and it's all happening at the same time. Tells me there's tons of audience out there for esports, and people like different things. People also like to see what's new, and I think people also really like to watch stuff that has a high production value. I know I was watching Christina's conversation earlier. I think E-League's production value is amazing. I watch everything they do because production value is awesome, and I think fans like to watch great competition with a good production value. So I think opening day and through stage one has really proven that there's a big audience out there for esports. It's not a competition. I certainly don't think of this as like, I got to steal viewers from other games. We're really focused on making awesome content right now for Overwatch fans. And, I think we'll start to continue to broaden that audience and bring in new fans and maybe people who have never played, maybe people who, don't play anymore and used to play. But there's a huge audience out there. And I think you're seeing that play out on Twitch on a daily basis, that there's fans out there that are excited about multiple games. And I think not too dissimilar from traditional sports, where you have, sort of a top tier of 4 or 5 really big leagues that all get really big viewership, and then you have 20 other pro sports leagues that all have big fan bases. I think you'll see similar thing in esports.
Speaking of Twitch, I know that you had spoken with multiple traditional models when it came to showcasing the games. I know that's because I was chasing it, and they were telling me. And then, of course, you announced the deal with Twitch. What made that such the right platform for you? And then what are some of the ways you're working together to expand the audiences and kind of embed yourself? Yeah,
I think Twitch is a great partner in that they're truly a partner. Like, we're really working together to make watching Overwatch League on Twitch a great experience. We recently launched the cheer mode program with what I think are the coolest cheer modes on Twitch. I'm biased, but they're pretty cool. And there's a bunch more stuff that we want to do in addition to that. We really are working super closely with them. We have a team at the league that's working with the team at Twitch on a daily basis, from everything from marketing and promotion to additional features that we want to add, whether it's via Twitch extensions or things that we want to do in broadcast. So I think I'm very excited about what we're going to be bringing to Overwatch League fans in the future through the Twitch partnership. And I know Twitch is super excited and invested too. Unfortunately, we're some time away from making more announcements, so nothing I can announce today, but we're definitely hard at work on bringing additional things to the broadcast experience on Twitch.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to dive into the future on that in a little bit. I am curious, stage one down, stage two, in the middle of stage two now, what would you change? What one thing would you change from stage one?
That's a good question. So, well, we already did change some stuff. We changed broadcast times. The biggest change that we made was moving the stage finals from being on Saturday after we've already played 3 games to moving to Sunday, which will just allow us to make it more hype, to promote it better. Also, team won't have to play 3 games in one day, which London did. Look, they won though, so yeah, it wasn't because they were tired. So that was a thing we would change. I think in general, I feel pretty good about where the show is. I think we launched with what is a really high quality and really well-focused esports show. The one area, I wouldn't say it's a thing I want to change, but it's an area that I want to continue to improve on and do more of, is storytelling. I think we've done some of that in the first, through the first 6-7 weeks, but there's way more that we can do on that. I think, to me, the coolest part of my job is getting to know the players, and the players have incredible stories. Like, it's no different than if you go talk to any professional athlete. You'll hear, guys that went through tons of adversity to get where they are. People who have just been great at everything their whole lives, and now they're a great gamer. Like, it's this huge variety of stories, and we really want to dig in there and tell more stories about the teams and the players, and give the fans more insight into what makes the players tick, what makes the teams tick. And that's an area that I think we can continue to improve on at the Overwatch League, and really as an industry as a whole. It's an area that I think, I joke sometimes, like, I don't think my job is ever to get my dad to watch the Overwatch League, but my dad might totally watch a documentary series about a player or a group of players and on their journey to making to the Overwatch League. Like, that kind of content, I think, can be super compelling for a lot of people. So that's an area of focus that I'd like to spend more time and attention and investment on as we grow the league over time.
So that's something you changed. What one thing surprised you the most?
I think the thing that surprised me the most, I knew that the city-based team thing would work eventually. I'm surprised at how fast it's worked, or is seeming to work. Like, how many, there was this great, amazing thread on Reddit. It was like the top post on our Overwatch right after launch, and it was like, this guy was telling a story about how he was, there was that new Orisa puppy emote, and he was wearing his Boston Uprising uniform, and he was sitting there playing with his puppy, and then somebody walked up, another Orisa walked up with an NYXL jersey and killed his puppy and walked away. And he was like, of course, New York, like, I hate you. And it's a funny story, but I think we've seen a bunch of things like that pop up, like the Houston Outlaws booth here at South by Southwest, and how many Jake jerseys I'm already seeing walking around the convention hall today. And I think it's been really cool to see the watch parties, and I get sent a picture almost on a daily basis of, oh, hey, I was in a bar in Kansas City, or like a place that we don't even have an Overwatch League team, and Overwatch League is up on the TV. And I think there's something about that affinity you have around your city, the connection that you have to it. I mean, they're now talking about Boston Uprising scores on sports talk radio in the city. Like, it's pretty cool. Right. And I think that wouldn't be happening if it wasn't called the Boston Uprising. So I've been surprised at how quickly that's sort of caught on, and I'm really excited about the future when teams actually go to their home venues, how we can really amplify that and take that further, and things that we can do in the off season to get the teams out in the cities more, and really give fans in the local markets an opportunity to interact with the teams and players.
Have you seen this becoming a family event?
Yeah, for sure. I think Overwatch is a really broadly appealing game. So right. It's T for teen. I think we have a really broad player base. Saturday, if you ever go to Blizzard Arena, honestly, it's like half families. It's really, really cool to see. It's unclear to me whether it's parents bringing the kids or kids bringing the parents. It might be a little bit of both. But I noticed, like, I have 2 kids. My generation of dads, plus or minus 5 years probably, is the first generation of dads that's never not had video games in my life. So I had kids. Of course I'm going to play games with my kids. Of course I'm going to watch esports with my kids. That's not going to change. And I think as as I get older, as my kids get older, as they have kids, it's just going to become super common, just as common as it is today to go to a Houston Astros game after work with the family as it is to go to a Houston Outlaws game with the kids after work. I don't see that being any different in 5 years.
No, it's been a lot of fun. I know I play with my kids, and of course, there's nothing quite as humiliating as hearing a 12-year-old cuss me out when I miss something.
You got to get good.
Yeah. So actually, that brings up a good point. Let's talk about toxicity. Blizzard, from their point of view.
PM'd him, didn't I? That was bad.
Blizzard, as a tech leader, an eSports leader in the space. What is their approach when it comes to toxicity? How do you deal with that? Clearly, it's a very complex question, something that's very tough to pinpoint. What are people's intentions? Do they mean to do this? Do they not mean to do this? Is this a cultural thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just an issue for games. It's an issue for the internet.
Right.
And I don't think it's a thing that we're going to be able to solve with an esport league or with some games. It's something that's super important to us, though, and I know it's important to the entire industry. Blizzard just announced we're joining this the Fair Play Alliance. It's about 30 game developers that are getting together. There's a keynote next week at GDC sort of kicking it off, but it's really game developers coming together, sharing best practices, what's working, what's not working, to try to combat this issue as best we can as an industry. I think pro gamers have a role to play in this, in that I know it's a lot to ask of 20-year-olds to be role models, and I don't think anyone's asking them to be role models. But the one thing that pro gamers have to realize is when they're streaming on Twitch or putting a YouTube video up or even just playing in the Overwatch League, there's lots of really young kids that are watching them, and they're looking up to them in the same way that I looked up to Tony Gwynn when I was growing up in San Diego watching baseball. Like, he was my idol. I wanted to be him. And what you're seeing now is little kids growing up and looking to Dream Casper and Rouge Hung and Toby and Jake and these guys, and they want to be them when they grow up. Right. And you have, with YouTube and Twitch and all of these platforms, if you go spend time, I promise you, if you go spend time with 12, 13, 14, even all the way down, I mean, my son's 8. Mm-hmm. All they do is watch other people play video games on the internet. That is literally all they do. They're either playing games or watching other people play video games. And that's not going to magically change when they turn 30. Right. That's the answer to the question, how do you know esports will be successful in the future, by the way. You can feel free to borrow that one. But I think pro gamers and influencers and big streamers on Twitch, like if you look, like Ninja had 650,000 people watching him play Fortnite last night. Right. Like, that's awesome and incredible, but that's a lot of responsibility. Like, there are now, I promise you, there's a kid that woke up somewhere in the world this morning and said, I'm going to be Ninja when I grow up. I promise you that happened, and it was probably thousands of kids that said that this morning. So I think we have to think about those platforms and those places and the way that we interact with others on games. And I think it's really going to take everybody who's a gamer and everybody who's an esport fan and everybody who's a part of these communities to do whatever they can, their small part, to make these places inclusive and welcoming places for all to come and spend time. And I think only with an effort where everybody's working together towards that goal will we be successful in eliminating toxicity. And I don't know that it's something we'll ever eliminate, but I know it's something that we can all do better at.
So looking forward then, once season 1 is done, what are going to be your immediate goals?
I think I'm going to go on a vacation, potentially. I don't know. I might just go watch more esports too. But, right. We're really the big focus for us right now, operationally, is thinking about going home and away. Like, that's the key focus. That's when we think Overwatch League is really going to take off, is when, Houston and Dallas are playing against each other in Houston or Dallas. Like, we think that's going to be an awesome moment. So all of my attention in the off season, and really all of my attention now, is really going to be focused on how do we get our teams ready to do that? How do we get ready to do that? How do we go from producing a broadcast in Burbank to producing 6 broadcasts in the same day around the world. Like, that's a thing that could happen, right?
What's your vision for that? Is it going to be blocks the way it is now? Is it going to be something more?
We'll see how it evolves. You know, scheduling for a sports league is incredibly complex.
Yeah.
So, like at the NBA, I think 40 years ago, it was probably 2 guys in a room with a bunch of Post-it notes. Now it's data scientists with very complex mathematical models that are taking in all sorts of factors like venue availability and times and how many back-to-backs you've played and how many 4 and 6s you played and all these sorts of things. And we're going to have the same challenge. And so I don't know exactly what that schedule is going to look like. We're going to have to ingest all those factors and put together something we think makes sense. I think one thing I can say is we will make sure that we're optimizing. Like if there's a game that's played in Houston, it will be played at a good time for Houston, irregardless of the rest of the world. And the same thing for London and Paris and Seoul and Shanghai. That's how we'll schedule, because that's how you schedule a sports league. But beyond that, we haven't quite figured out exactly days of the week and things like that. But it's totally conceivable that there could be games almost every day of the week.
Do you see people starting to travel next season or further down the road?
We'll see. I think we're about to start kicking off expansion sales for season 2.
My next question.
We're going to be looking to add additional teams in Europe and Asia. Is really going to be our focus. We want to balance. We have 9 North American teams now. We really want to balance the league out more globally to have it be more reflective of the Overwatch player base, which is extremely global. So I don't have an exact timeline on it, but it's something that we're working hard towards, and we want to do as soon as the teams are ready.
Do you foresee divisions divided by North America?
Yeah, well, we have the 2 divisions now, Pacific and Atlantic, and I think that gives us a really good base to work off of. There's a world where you get to 14 teams in the Pacific division, and maybe that's then divided into, Asia Pacific and Western Pacific. We'll figure it out, but the idea is that we'll keep the division system, and then if we need to have conferences within divisions, that's something we could consider.
Have you already started talking with people who are interested in investing?
Yeah, we have. I'd say formally the process is going to kick off here in a few weeks,
right?
Which will mean back on the road doing meetings, which is always fun. It's really exciting, honestly. Selling the teams in the first year, and ramping into doing that again next year. It's really exciting to see how engaged, particularly the guys from traditional sports, like. Something I think it's important for fans to know is our owners, this is not like an investment that they made that they're put off in the corner. Like, they're incredibly engaged. We had our first team owner meeting back in November where we had 4 representatives of each team out. We have another team owner meeting next week. We're having regular conversation. We're talking with our teams literally every day. They're incredibly engaged in what they can do to build their brands in their local market. You're already seeing a lot of that. I think Houston's activation here today is a great example of things that teams are starting to do. So we're really excited to see that take off, and really excited to have conversations with partners about adding more teams in Europe and Asia for next season.
Is there a magic number in terms of what you're looking for?
No, I don't think we have a set number. We'll go out and see where the interest is, but I know there's a lot of interest, and it's going to be a different proposition. Last year, when we were selling the teams, we're selling a vision, and now we're selling an actual product that's had some success. So I think it'll be a bit of a different process, but there's definitely a lot of folks out there interested, and I think for us, we're looking for people, like I mentioned, that have a proven ability in building a great fan base, great operational capability, and a really solid plan for how they're going to build a world-class esports brand in a market.
Terrific. Now, I know I'm sure there's some people in the audience who want to do questions. Maybe we'll take one last crack at the video, see if we can get that going. And if not, then we'll just jump right into the questions.
All right, video's dead. Let's go with the questions.
Let's do this.
My name's Christian. My question is, Nate, you mentioned that a lot of the teams don't make any money. They're losing money, which makes sense. But when you're speaking to the franchises and also the capital budgeting committee within Blizzard itself, what are some of the financial metrics that you guys discuss in order to incentivize making that upfront investment into the league?
Yeah, so the whole one of the whole reasons for franchising for city-based teams for home and away is we think that is the key to unlocking significant revenues and profits for teams. Is once they get to hosting home games and they are able to sell local sponsors. If you think about, if you go to an Astros game, you're going to look out in the outfield and you're going to see like the local Ford dealer is going to have a banner out there. You're going to see like a credit union, a hospital. Those brands have zero reason to invest in esports today because it's global and there's no local activation. We think having home games like that's going to unlock significant potential revenue for teams from local sponsors. We think selling tickets, selling merchandise in the home market, all of the things around the venue, all of that's going to unlock revenue streams that don't exist in esports today for teams. And so that's really the vision. And in addition, in the Overwatch League, all of the revenues that we make as a league across, the media deals like we have with Twitch, sponsorships like we have with HP, Intel, Toyota, T-Mobile, Sour Patch Kids, all of those revenues, including the revenue for that jersey you're wearing, goes into a pool that we share with the teams.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Luke, and I'm just I'm looking to wondering if you have any strategies for the casual viewership of Overwatch League. I'm curious if you have any data on how many of the viewers are non-gamers and come from traditional sports areas, and what if any strategies do you have on getting non-Overwatch players to watch Overwatch League?
Yeah. I don't have any specific data on that I can share yet. It's still pretty early on that, but we do know there's a lot of people who watch the Overwatch League who aren't actively playing Overwatch. I think one of the things that we are thinking a lot about is how do we produce the broadcast in a way that's really accessible while at the same time giving core fans tools where they can get the experience they want. So one of the big things that we hear a lot is super hardcore Overwatch players and really core fans. If it were up to them, everything would be first person all the time. They want to see sick plays in first person. If you talk to more casual players or even people who don't play, they're like, oh my gosh, give me third person all the time. I never want to see first person. I can't understand what's going on. So that's tricky, right? What we want to do is really be thoughtful about how we produce a broadcast that's accessible for casual fans, how we also give awesome experiences to core fans as well. We've thought a lot about, at some point, maybe in the future, do we have tools that allow fans to choose which angle they want to watch from? Maybe you actually only care about watching Pharah, you just want to watch Fleta play Pharah, you can do that. That's something we, down the road could be, is something we've thought a lot about. So overall though, I think we really want to make sure our main show that you watch is accessible, and maybe if you're new to the game or maybe you don't play much, you still have a good understanding of what's happening after sort of a basic explanation of the rules.
Hi, I'm Alex. My favorite quote about the Overwatch League on Twitch was someone saying this is the biggest bet that anyone has ever taken, that esports is going to be a really huge thing, and there's going to be thousands of people really, really nervous that you guys fuck it up. Did you have any plans in place that what would you do if it didn't work out the way they did, especially towards people who invested a lot of money in teams and sponsors?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, no.
Okay.
I mean, we felt pretty. I mean, the best thing that happened on launch day was I was walking around the studio, and there were 150 people there, getting ready to launch the league, and nobody was freaking out. There were no last minute. No one was running around like a chicken with their head cut off. Everybody was just ready to execute, which meant we were ready. And that felt really good. That was actually the most satisfying thing of that day, was that everything just worked and it went well. So I think we were very thoughtful about the team that we built. We were very thoughtful about the plan. We were ready to launch the league. We knew that it was going to take time to build, but we never thought about, well, what are we going to do if this doesn't work? We felt really confident in our plan. We think we have a good plan. We think we have a great team built around the league to execute it. And it's awesome that fans love it so much out of the gate, and we're going to continue to work hard to make sure that we continue to earn that passion.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Steve. You talked a lot about how closely you're trying to bring the Overwatch League to traditional sports. My question is, what are you trying to do to make it unique and stand out from traditional sports? And related to that, Overwatch League VR when?
That would be pretty sick, right? If you could like be the payload. I mean, it might be terrifying too. So yeah, so I don't know the answer to that one. I think there's like the game itself is unique. I think like when we think about what do we do to make it unique, I don't think we really need to have any gimmicks. I think it's an incredible game that's like it's so much about team play. It's so much about synergy within a team. Like there's so much nuance into high-level Overwatch. It's truly, I think it's one of those games. There's very few games like this. I think Counter-Strike is a great example of a game like this. Dota and League and Heroes are great examples of games like this, where it's relatively simple to learn, but it's nearly impossible to master, right? And those I think are the best games, the games that we all love to play competitively. And so I think Overwatch is an incredibly unique game and really stands out for all of those reasons. And I think we can take through, as I mentioned earlier, like storytelling and things that we're doing around the match itself to really differentiate from other content, because I think our stories are unique, our players are unique, their journeys are unique, and our teams are unique as well. I mean, it's the first esports franchises in the world. That's a cool story, and it's a cool story to tell the journey of how these teams are coming together and how these players' careers are going to evolve. So we're not really thinking too much about how do we make things unique. We're really trying to own what the game is and trying to be true to our audience. The Overwatch fan base is incredibly passionate. It's amazing. Every conference I go to, like, it seems like half of the cosplay in the world is Overwatch cosplay at this point, which is really cool. The audience is incredibly passionate. We just need to make sure we're remaining authentic to the brand and authentic to that audience, and I think we'll do fine.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Adam Rubin with the Detroit Pistons. Question on expansion. Obviously, you're looking to expand to teams worldwide. How are you going to handle players? Will they all go back into free agency? Will it be a traditional sports protection draft where teams will protect 1 to 3 players and then they draft from there? Or will the newer teams be forced to draft from players who aren't currently on rosters?
That's a super good question. We are working out the details of that right now. I think there will definitely be some mechanism that gives new expansion teams an opportunity to have a crack at some talent, but the exact mechanism of that we haven't worked out yet. But we'll probably have an announcement on that within the next month or two as we start to roll out more information around season 2.
Cool, thank you.
Hey guys, Mark Phillip, Chris, how are you? Good to see you. Mark Phillip, Diva Main here. My question is around sort of how you are looking at other sports. So to me, Overwatch feels a lot like F1, or at least the league feels a lot like F1. You have really disparate places, you have time zones that are really funky, and I'm biased, but what I would love to see is almost like a red zone channel for Overwatch. So you have the league where, okay, you know where that's gonna be, but I look at these hundreds and hundreds of streams, and I don't know which one's actually worth watching, because I just want to watch someone who's doing something awesome with Diva that I haven't seen before in an exciting match versus just sort of trolls running around. So I'm curious, stuff like Red Zone Channel, stuff like other things, if you could wave a magic wand, what would you steal from one of the more established leagues and plant on Overwatch?
Yeah, so when we get to a point where we have 28 teams around the world playing Overwatch League games at all hours, and maybe I think it would likely evolve into a place where we have certain days of the week where there's critical massive matches. We also think a red zone style channel could be super cool. I personally, I can't remember last time I watched an NFL game like not on red zone channel.
Yeah.
Maybe because it's super boring and that's way more exciting. So that type of stuff we're definitely thinking about. I think in the way that we borrowed a lot of structural things in the league from traditional sports, we're also looking at sports media a lot to borrow things. Steve Bornstein, who is the CEO of ESPN for 25 years, is the chairman of MLG, and having him as a soundboard for ideas that we have is an incredible asset. He's super engaged and involved So yeah, we have tons of ideas like that, and especially as the league grows and expands and evolves, and we have more teams around the world, it's totally something we'd consider.
Thanks.
How's it going? Thanks for making the time to come out here. My name is Eddie. I'm an enrichment programs director at Acton Esteem Academy, which is a Acton affiliate. We focus on arts and technology. So we launched an esports club, an actual esports league for the Acton schools. And a lot of our students are really engaged with video games, especially with their parents, seeing them through the tech side and I teach them how to set up the Twitch broadcast and all that. But the question I have is, when you expand and you grow, of course, you're going to find an abundance of players. However, are you going to be able to find an abundance of casters and announcers? Because there's some of my students that look up to the announcers more than they do the players, and there's a path to pro on the website, which they're all studying right now. But there's not a path to how to become a good announcer, and some of them have killer skills. So is there a path for them, or are you just going to go the traditional route with hiring, sports broadcasters from other networks?
Yeah, honestly, that's an awesome question. So something that I want to do next summer, and maybe if I say it publicly, then we'll definitely do it, because we have to do it if I say it publicly. I want to figure out how do we create some semblance of that for people who just want to work in esports. I think collegiate programs, like we have the TCS, TESPA Collegiate Series that we do, is one great thing we can do. I think we also, the thing that I'd like to do starting next summer is more formal internship program around Overwatch League, where maybe we bring in a dozen or so college students and let them experience all of the things across league operations and broadcast and events. I think that's really the best way is to bring people in and give them exposure to a lot of different things. I think I meet a lot of people who want to work in esports, but they don't know how to work in esports. They don't know what jobs are available in esports. My answer typically, which is kind of a crappy answer, is if you know what you want to do, you should just start doing it. Like if you want to be a writer, you should start writing. If you want to work on broadcast, go volunteer at a DreamHack event. Like you should just go try to do stuff. But I think there's totally more things that we could do as a league to open up opportunities for people that want to work in esports and not just be a player. So it's a great question. It's something we haven't done enough of, and it's something I definitely want to do more of. And I think through colleges, it could definitely be the way. So shoot me an email. Maybe we'll work with you guys.
Cool, yeah,
Try
I'll
to
talk with you
figure
after.
something out.
Thanks.
Hi, my name's Tarek. Thanks for coming to speak to us. I had a question kind of following up with that. So, for example, Jet Jamerson, he worked at like a Starbucks across the street from Blizzard, right? And, he's playing like low GM games in the ladder and ends up getting to the point now where he's casting Contenders games. You have Harsha, who worked on Over.gg. Now he's the coach of the Shock. You have like Captain Planet bringing in with the statistical analysis. So just following up with that, the way they got to be where they are is pretty untraditional. I just wanted to touch more on the question you just answered. What are your thoughts regarding the structure moving forward? Do you see them being involved? Because I think they're, to me personally, the foundation of what is to grow what you just answered. And then I have a two-part question.
Yeah. I mean, like Captain Planet's a great example. Like he sits in the broadcast room during every Overwatch League game now. And the reason he got that job is because he was making really cool content around Overwatch, and we all thought his content was cool. So we called him and said, "Do you want to work with us?" So again, like, just start doing stuff is generally the best way to get involved in esports right now. And it can be really anything. I mean, there's tons of jobs. I think one of the things that I think we will start to do more of is we have this idea, again, maybe if I say it publicly, we'll actually do it, of like, if you go to the Blizzard Arena, maybe we draw raffle tickets and every night at the arena, like 5 random fans get to go get a backstage tour. Because I think there's a lot of people that don't necessarily know all that goes into esports. We have over 100 people at the arena on a game day doing a whole host of different things. So I think these are great questions, and there's definitely more that we can do to open up people to those opportunities.
One more quick question. You said that the Premier League game opened you up to soccer, right? So for an example, London's a great team. They started with GC Busan and Gangdu Panthera, 2 completely Korean rosters on the only European team in the Overwatch League. Moving forward, do you see anything, for example, in the English Premier League, you have to have 25 players on a roster, but you can only have a maximum of 17 foreign players. Do you see something like that with a percentage has to be localized being?
I don't know. We'll see how it evolves over time. We want to have the best players in the league right now is the goal.
Yeah,
I think people usually ask like, oh, is it a problem that New York has all Koreans? I usually answer, well, how many guys from New York are on the Yankees? Do you know the answer to that question? And then people go, oh yeah, I get it. So I think like people who are fans of sports teams want to see their sports teams win. I think we'll continue to keep our eyes on it and evaluate it over time. And if we need to do a rule at some point in the future, we'll consider it. But right now, we don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
So I'm getting yelled at for time. So I think we got to wrap it up.
Are we okay to finish out just whoever's in line, or are we done? Oh, we're done. Okay.
Okay, we're done. Oh, two more questions.
Awesome. Okay.
Hi, I'm Jason. I'll be real quick. You mentioned providing some of the data that you had about players to the teams to help them scout and figure out who are the best people to have on the roster. What do you think about analytics, in esports in general, and in particular to the Overwatch League in terms of, enhancing broadcast, enhancing coaching, and maybe even things that can be relayed to the fan base to help them raise their own games if they're Overwatch players?
Yeah, it's totally something we're thinking about. We have a stats tab on the website that currently does not, it's grayed out. There's nothing there. We hope to be launching that soon. We definitely want to give fans more insight into what makes these players great and then how that relates to your game as well. And we even want to do at some point in the future things like fantasy Overwatch League, which we think would be pretty cool. So we're continuing to work on that stuff. I would say definitely things that we're going to do in the future, just don't know exactly when. It's kind of hard, like we're a new sport, right? So in some ways we still need to figure out what's like home run, batting average, RBIs for Overwatch League. So we're still doing a lot of work, but we have a full team of data scientists that work dedicated on Overwatch League, so it's definitely something that we're putting resources behind.
Awesome.
All right, last question.
Yeah. I'll make it real quick. You mentioned using like aspects or characteristics of traditional sports as a model for the league, and what characteristics or aspects of traditional sports did you want to avoid or not do or try to like stay away from?
That's a really, really good question. That's a deep one for the last question of the panel.
Sorry.
I think I don't know. I don't necessarily think there's anything that traditional sports leagues do poorly. I think they all do things very differently. I think we didn't view one league as the model and just sort of copy what they did. I think we're going to evolve. Like our sport's different, our players are different, our audience is different. I think we're going to evolve it in our own way. I think we want to make sure that the thing that's most important to us is that we continue to make content that's authentic to our fans and really support our pro players and treat them professionally and build them up. And I think we're I don't even really, there's nothing really bad, I would say, that traditional sports leagues do. It's all just different, and I think we're going to end up charting our own path as well.
All right, thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, everybody.
Cool, thanks.